Hi folks, Lou here to try to answer the question, is my game Britannia from 1986 originally a Euro-style game? Well, the short answer is, of course not. But I know of at least two cases where people have said it is. And the question then is, why might they say that? That's our topic. Now, I'm not going to go through all the characteristics of Euro games, which would take far too long. I'll just list the cases where Britannia and Euro games intersect, and some where they definitely do not. Of course, keep in mind, Eurogames are a vast category. I am thinking of Euros as family games on steroids, not as the heavy strategy games that are the most well-known of the Euro-style games, or of what have derived from Euro-style games. So not Power Grid, Puerto Rico, and the like. Well, here's a list of some of the common elements, and I'll go through each one by one. First of all, we have no player elimination. Well, that's because of the nature of the situation. The game covers 1,000 years of the history of the island of Great Britain. And the game assigns 4 or so nations to each player, so an individual nation may be wiped out. In quite rare instances, one of the players may be wiped off the board, but there's more nations to play. So at the end of the game, generally every player has some units in play, although it's conceivable that you could be wiped out and still win the game from an accumulation of points. So in general, no player is eliminated, unlike most older war games. Now, Eurogames, having a stronger social element than war games, rarely involve player elimination. I guess nobody wants to be stuck with nothing to do. So this is a place where Britannia is like a Eurogame. Also, Britannia is a points game. Games where the winner is determined by points are common in the Euro style, and they're quite unusual in war games. Most of the points in Britannia come from holding territories that the nation held or wanted to, providing much of the historical connection. The points come from a player's nations individually. The nations don't cooperate, and they may even fight one another once in a while. It may suit the player to do that. Well, what about there being relatively few pieces? At least in older times, Euros had few pieces to work with, which reduced the complexity and the burden on the player's mind. In Britannia, players play one nation at a time, so they may have as few as 1 or 2 pieces for a nation, or rarely, they might have more than a dozen pieces to work with at once. The entire board averages about 55 pieces in a turn. So divided by 4 players, nobody has a lot of pieces generally amongst all their nations. What about the fact that Britannia is for more than 2 players? Most Euros are for usually 3 to 4 players. There are some 2-player ones, for example, Lost Cities. Now, most war games and classic games, such as chess and checkers and so on, are for 2 players. So in that respect, Britannia is unusual as a war game because ideally it's for 4, though there is a good 3-player version. We're reaching now with attacking can be unwise. Many well-known war games, such as Risk, include a lot of attacking. They are conquest games, as I call them. If you play Britannia that way, you likely will lose. You've got to decide when to attack and when not, and often not attacking is better. But there's still lots of fighting. This is a subtle distinction. And you can see I'm trying hard to find Euro-like characteristics, but it's not easy. Now, what's not Euro-like about Britannia? Well, for example, it's a very long game, 4 to 5 hours. And for people playing it the first time, it's more like 7. Now, my relatively new 2020 2-player 90-minute dual Britannia might qualify here, but not Britannia itself. And of course, Some recent Euro-style games, at least the heavy strategy ones, are long games, but rarely this long. Another difference is that it's clearly a war game, and until recently, Euro-style war games were very, very rare. Even now, they're quite rare because of another difference. Britannia is highly interactive between the players, and Euro-style games almost always are very low interaction. So Britannia has a chess-like quality. You've got to watch what the other players do and react. And in Euro-style games, frequently they are parallel competitions, and you don't need to do that. There's lots of dice rolling in Britannia. I once tallied up the number of dice rolls in some play-by-email games. It was about 800 rolls. Dice rolling used to be verboten in Euro-style games. It's considerably more common now, but still, you rarely get a game where there's that much dice rolling. There's also a difference in how the rules are written. In the original editions of Britannia, there were reference rules, which are typical of war games, rather than sequence of play, which is typical of Euro games. Now the Britannia rules are sequence play in later editions. Of course, we've talked about all this, but some people think any game they like is a Euro-style game, so who knows? Thanks for listening.